know we'll edit this part out. Get up here.
Why?
Because you need to be sitting here. You ready? Okay. Hey guys, I'm Derek.
And I'm Becca.
And our little Ellie Roo, she's already asleep for the night, but we know she's the star of the show. We understand y'all want to see her more than you want to see us. But it's just us tonight. We have to take opportunities as parents to vlog and do videos and blog and all those other things when she's asleep. We get a lot of work done when she's asleep. Our goal for you guys is to create these vlogs so that we can tell you a little bit about our history, our past on the Appalachian Trail through hiking with Ellie. And then to keep you up in the loop with things that are going on as far as the van, our next big adventure, things like that. So we'll just jump right in. Becca's got an awesome punch list of things that she wants to tell you guys about our through hike. And there are going to be many more of these. So if we don't answer your questions at first tonight, we definitely will eventually.
I asked a little while back, what are some different topics we can cover on our through hike? And so I made a huge list of all the topics that people wanted to hear covered, and so that's awesome and it's really helpful for us. And the first one we're going to tackle today is planning and preparing for our through hike and what that looked like with Ellie and how we prepared her, prepared ourselves, and prepared our family and friends. So I'll dive right in. So, why did we decide to do the Appalachian Trail?
It was actually a dream of mine from the time I was a teenager. In high school, I worked at an outfitter here in Virginia. It was right on the Appalachian Trail, and so every through hiking season, I would see through hikers coming in. I got to be a little part of the community, and I really just wanted to through hike. I didn't have the money after high school. Going out of college was the next good opportunity, but we were offered full-time jobs that we decided to take at that time. So while it was a dream of mine, I just never had the opportunity. And then one day, Becca, having promised me the night before our wedding that we would through hike the Appalachian Trail.
Derek, I know this isn't very pretty, but hiking the AT with you isn't always going to be pretty. This groom's cake I have made for you is a symbol of my promise to through hike with you. It's one of your biggest life dreams, and I never ever want to discourage you from following through with your dreams. Instead, I want to be by your side, encouraging you and loving you every step of the way. I love you longer than the whole Appalachian Trail. Love, Becca.
She decided to pop the question and ask me if I wanted to through hike. The interesting part was that we had a daughter at the time that was just a couple months old. So anyways, I was like, sure, because of course I wanted to do it, but I didn't think she was serious. She was.
First thing we did was got online and we thought, oh, I'm sure somebody's done this before, so let's learn from somebody else and we'll just take all their tips and go from there. And so we got online and started Google searching everything we possibly could, and through all of our research we spent couple hours just that night looking stuff up and couldn't find a single family that had through hike.
It was a big surprise.
And so
with
we
a baby.
like,
we had found families that had through hike with kids, but not
carrying a child. We were actually super surprised. So the next day I called the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and I asked them, I said, hey, I see that you have a list of resources for families that have taken kids on the trail. They said, let's go into our database and we'll get back to you. So they called back and said, sure enough, there's nobody. And so we were like, okay, well, one, that either means it's not possible and there's some huge risk that we're not thinking about for taking a baby. And then two, be just that it hasn't worked out for anyone yet. So the next thing we decided to do was call friends that had through hiked before, and we talked to them and just said, hey, here's our idea, here's what we're thinking, what are your thoughts? And so got the scoop from them firsthand. They had through hiked in the past couple years, so the information and the experience was fresh in their minds, and they pretty much came to the conclusion, based on your previous backpacking experience and the understanding that if anything gets stressful or complicated with Ellie and you don't feel safe having her on the trail and you're going to back out, they said as long as those two things are in place, you guys are good to go. We don't see any red flags. It's not like you're going to be mountaineering and you're not going to be roped in climbing up sections or anything like that. So they said as far as the physical trail goes, they said take your time, be slow and safe, and you guys can do this. So once we decided, all right, well, we're going to go for it, we had to put some things into place, such as
selling our house. So like I said, we were offered full-time jobs right out of college. And that turned into taking those jobs and buying a house and settling down in Greenville, South Carolina. And we loved it there. We really did. But we didn't want to have to worry about owning a home while we were on the trail. And we also didn't want to have to worry about running out of money while we were on the trail. So selling the house solved both of those problems. And then we also left our jobs. So I was working full-time. Becca was on maternity leave at the time. And we were looking to transition out of Greenville anyways and come back closer to family in Virginia. So it was a good time for me to step out of the job that I was in. I had a really great job with an awesome company, guiding adventure-based trips. It was also a good time for me to step out.
Yeah, so leaving for the trail in the spring was a decision that we made based on as much of a time frame that we could be in good weather as possible. We started March 20th, and we decided to start early because if we had to take a full 8 months, that would take us through right up to Thanksgiving. And we thought we don't want to go past Thanksgiving because it just starts to get really cold. We want to be home for the holidays. So that was our time frame that we had to through hike, and so that would have put us at 8 months total. And
you're allowed up to a year to be considered a through hike.
Yeah. With that in mind, we had to pick what direction we wanted to go, and we could either go northbound or we could flip-flop, which is starting in the middle, hiking one direction, then hiking the other direction to make 2 sections into one. Going southbound from Maine to Georgia was not an option for us starting in March because Katahdin doesn't even open until the first or second week of June.
And that would have put us at Springer later than we wanted to finish.
Right, really
we didn't
late.
want to be in the Smokies for the snow.
No. So we decided to flip-flop. So a really cool fact, we are both in an AT trail town. Daleville, Virginia, our home is 15 minutes away from there. And so what we decided to do is we decided to start at McAfee Knob, which is the #1 photograph spot on the trail. We decided to start at the parking lot closest to there. And we hiked south to Georgia. That put us really close to family and friends in the south that first 700 miles, which was really awesome and important to us that we were close to family and friends. If anything happened, we could be reached easily and quickly. When we finished in Georgia, we finished there May 13th, and then we drove up to Maine. We started there June 10th, and
we had to take a long break because we got to Springer faster than we thought we would, and Katahdin wasn't open yet.
Yeah.
So there was about a month between Springer and starting over again.
And one really cool thing about that I loved is that family was there to both send us off and then here to welcome us home, and that was really awesome because while this was a journey that was just me, Derek, and Ellie, they were a huge really support network for us. We're really happy to have them join us for the very beginning and very end of our trip. So speaking of the support team, is another thing we did is we had asked my mom to be our primary support person. That way we only had one person to communicate with when it came to sending us resupply boxes. We weren't trying to communicate with a ton of different people about logistics. We were only communicating with one about logistics. That way when we talked to the rest of our family members, we could just talk about life and give them updates and hear about how things are going at home and stuff. And then we had to figure out if we were going to resupply in town or if we were going to have boxes sent.
Yeah, so Becca and her mom, being the awesome logistic queens that they are, they pretty much figured out and packed out our entire hike from here to Springer in a very short amount of time. So they figured out where the boxes were going to be mailed to, how many miles and days between each of those locations, so they knew exactly how many diapers to put in the boxes, and then second in line was how much food to put into those. Diapers were a huge priority, and getting that right was important so that we wouldn't run out of diapers before we got to the next box of diapers. So they figured all that out for us, and it worked great. And then in our lag time between Springer and Katahdin, they packed out more boxes and really got a system down for packing boxes for the remainder of our hike. But that ended up eventually sort of changing because of the cost of shipping a box from Virginia to Maine was very expensive. So we changed a few things eventually, but they figured that out, and they did a really, really, really awesome job. Our food, they prepackaged those. Becca and I had somewhat picky dietary needs. We like to eat unprocessed food. We like to eat organic, which, if you know, resupplying on the Appalachian Trail, that's really hard because a lot of your resupplies are gas stations or convenience stores or stuff like that. And so she did an awesome job of recipes and prepackaging those meals so that all we had to do was boil water, dump the food in, put it into our pot cozy, and just let it sit for a couple of minutes and let it cook in there. So we had some amazing meals, like a Thanksgiving meal, spaghetti, chicken pesto pasta, Alfredo, Asian meals, and all sorts of just really, really good meals for dinners. And then grits and oatmeal and hash browns and sausage and stuff for breakfast. It was really good. So the girls did an awesome job on that. And if it had been left up to me, it would not have been the same story.
All ramen noodles every night.
Lots of ramen. Ramen bombs, baby. They're awesome.
Before we did all these resupply boxes, I had to make sure that the time and money was worth it. And so I did tons of research online trying to figure out if this was worth it. And basically everyone else said, no, don't do it.
But they didn't have diapers.
And I was like, wait a second.
Well,
these people don't have babies in diapers. Like, we're going to have to send resupply boxes. And it worked out great. And then we did supplement in town when we were at a grocery store, convenience store, because you get, the hiker hunger. And so we'd get extra snacks. The next fun part, which Derek did a lot of, was researching gear.
Having worked at an outfitter, I knew generally what thru hikers like to carry. But since we were carrying 20 extra pounds of baby, being ultralight was really important. And so I had a background in ultralight backpacking. But I had never gone this light before. We did everything we could to get weight down. We didn't take any excess. In the beginning we did, so it was still pretty cold in the beginning. We carried extra clothes because we didn't want Ellie to get cold, and we didn't want to get cold. But we bought the $750 Z-Pack Triple X tent, which was worth it. Trust me, like, for our needs, having that ultralight tent that we could zip Ellie up in and call that her pack and play, it was awesome. Z-Packs, y'all rock. That tent was
durable.
And then just everywhere else that we could cut weight, we cut weight. Eventually, we got rid of, when it was warm enough, we got rid of our cook set and we did no cook. We carried a quilt instead of 2 sleeping bags, a 2-person quilt that went over all 3 of us. We carried the Thermarest Neo Air sleeping pads, just everything we could to cut weight and still be safe and comfortable. But some of the excess luxury items that thru hikers will take, like a camera that's better than an iPhone, or a little tripod, or we just didn't do all of that. So it was bare minimum. We were really proud. By the end, I was carrying the food and I was carrying Ellie, and that's all I carried. Becca carried all of our gear, all of our clothes, and she carried water. Her base weight was like 15 pounds, and that's for 3 people. So we were really, really proud of that. We got it really low. We had no excess. And on the contrary, though, the one area that you can't necessarily go ultralight when you're backpacking with a baby is the carrier. We used the Deuter Kid Comfort 3, and again, worth every penny. It's a heavy pack, but you're carrying a human being on there, and we wanted her to be protected. The Deuter Kid Comfort 3 is by far the most protective pack there is to carry your child in. It protects their head if you were to fall. It protects them on the sides. It's super padded. It's got an awesome pillow for her to lay her head on. She slept a whole lot. And it had storage underneath that I could carry food, or in the beginning when Becca was carrying Ellie, she was able to carry a couple of layers in Ellie's diapers.
It was hard, though, because technically Derek and I had everything we could possibly need for backpacking already, and so
multiples of everything,
because our background is in backpacking and guiding long-distance trips, and so
we could have gone and thru hiked without buying anything.
Yeah,
and we could have outfitted 4 people. We had a lot of stuff.
So we had everything we technically needed. But then when it came down to the weight, I mean, we were both going to be carrying 50-pound packs. But it was a little painful having to buy ultralight.
All new stuff.
Yeah, all new ultralight gear, which ultralight gear, even though it weighs less, it costs the most. So
can be worth it, though.
That was hard, but in our circumstances when we were carrying an extra 20 pounds plus her clothes and her diapers, it was worth it for sure. Also, in addition to that, Ellie's clothes, she's the only one that had extras of stuff. So she had extras of everything because babies are messy and they get
blowouts,
yucky and gross and poop everywhere. And so we didn't skimp on any clothes for her. We always had extra diapers for her at the end of the day. She's the only one we didn't skimp on. The next thing we got to do is physically preparing Ellie for the trail. She was only a couple months old when we decided to thru hike, and so we had tons of time to get her ready. And what that looked like was just adapting the lifestyle that we would have on the trail as much as possible inside a comfy home. And we knew she was going to be sleeping with us on our sleeping pads at this point, and so instead of transitioning her to a crib, we kept her in our room and most of the time in our bed with us. And so she was always in close proximity, so it was normal for her to hear our wrestling around in the middle of the night. She could sleep well like that, and then also vice versa. We could sleep well by hearing her little baby grunts and stuff. So we never transitioned her to a separate room because we didn't want to have to worry about her getting used to sleeping on her own. And then also, as far as sleep goes, we made sure she was sleeping in all different kinds of environments. We didn't just let her sleep in her crib every time she wanted to sleep. We would lay her down on a blanket in the shade outside. We would have her take a nap while I was vacuuming or doing dishes or things like that, which a lot of parents do that anyway, just to get their child accustomed to sleeping different places. It doesn't just apply to our thru hike, but it was super important for us to know that ahead of time we knew she was going to sleep well on the trail because she was going to be with us.
She slept a whole lot.
Yeah, she did. Then another thing that we did is we didn't give her a schedule. Most parenting books say that when a baby's really little, that you start putting them on a routine, and that allows them to kind of know what's coming, know that they're always going to get fed, know when their nap time's going to be, know when their playtime's going to be. I
like to know those things too.
We totally ditched all of that because we were like, our life on the trail is going to be unpredictable. We're not stopping on the trail in the middle of the day for specific nap time. So we did not put her on a schedule. The next thing we did is we wore her all the time, everywhere. So when we were in the house, she was in a wrap. I don't mean in the backpack carrier because that's a little overkill for inside. But she got used to being worn all the time and being able to sleep while being jostled around, walking up and down. And so I would do dishes with wearing her. I would go pick vegetables in her garden with her, take walks, go on hikes with her, go get the mail. I was constantly carrying her during the day, and then when Derek got home, it was his turn to carry her all the time. So she was used to being worn in the carrier, and she loved it. I think that was a huge help for while we were on the trail because she was in the backpack a lot. The only other thing I can think of that we did was we made sure her body was used to all different kinds of temperatures and that we knew how to properly clothe her for those temperatures. And we didn't keep her at a perfect 70 degrees all the time. We would go out in the middle of the summer when it was really hot and just make sure she was hydrated and make sure she was in the shade and that she wasn't getting a ton of sun exposure, so we'd cover her skin or put sunscreen on her. So, all the smart things parents do when they have a baby, a lot of these things just come natural. It's not like we had to work super hard. It's like, oh, you make sure your child isn't getting sunburned. And so in the wintertime, all we would do is we would bundle Ellie up and we would take her out in the cold and make sure that all her skin was covered, and then she knew that if a little bit of wind or coldness got on her face that it was okay, and her body was still going to stay nice, snug, and warm in her bunting. So the next thing we had to do after, while we were doing this, in the meantime, we were preparing ourselves as well.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things we did to prepare ourselves. Obviously, we were hiking ourselves, trying to get ourselves physically ready. We also decided to get our Wilderness First Responder recertification. We had been woofers for about 6 years. And we wanted it to be really fresh on our minds so that we knew how to handle any situations that would arise. So whether I got sick or injured, Becca would know how to handle that. If Becca got sick or injured, I would know how to handle that. If Ellie got sick or injured, we would both know how to handle that, and we would both be there and available for that. We wanted that to be fresh, so we did right before we started the trail. And thankfully, we never had to use it. We were really glad that nothing ever happened. And then we also studied a lot. We had read a lot about the Appalachian Trail. We knew a lot of the big, well-known, more difficult or challenging or dangerous parts. But I really, really wanted to know. So I read, I studied, I I did everything I could to know what to expect in each section. We broke the trail down into sections so that we could handle it in smaller bits and chunks. I didn't want to be surprised by anything, and so pretty much going into every section, I knew what we were getting ourselves into. In the beginning, you know, it was going to be the south. It was long climbs with shaded trees a lot of the times, and not a lot of very dangerous terrain. And then, you know, New Hampshire and Maine, they're known for being hard, and they were very hard, but we knew that going into it, and we knew what was going to be on the other side, which was a nice reprieve pretty much through the end. When we hit Virginia, we hit the mountains again, but so we were studied, we knew what to expect.
Then we headed out, and we will talk about what
That's all for later.
Yeah, that's all for later, and we'll talk about that in the following videos that'll come up in the next weeks and months. So thank you for joining us. This, again, was our first vlog. Comment below with questions. Yeah, tips.
Questions. They'll feed these. So if you've got questions, we'll be able to keep making vlogs. We know you guys have a lot of things on your mind. We get it all the time, so we're happy to share with you guys and be a resource for people. We really wanted to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks again for watching.